Welcome everybody to my review for the newest throwback slasher called Clown in a Cornfield. So this movie was actually based off a book that was written by Adam Caesar. I've never read the book, but I always heard people talk about the book, and I kept seeing the book pop up here and there and stuff. And I think he's on 3 books now. I think he's on the 3rd one. And I always knew when I saw the book, I was like, I wonder how long it will take them before they make a movie. And a couple years later, here we are. I know this movie premiered at South by Southwest just a few months ago, and I know a lot of people who attended that world premiere of it have actually read the book, and there was a lot of people that read the book that were actually very happy with this movie, and that's something I don't see a lot. You know, as book readers, I know a lot of people are mad how they change stuff in the movie or they make something different that's different in the book. I've never had that experience. I'm not a big reader. The only thing that I can remotely get close to that is The Last of Us show, where I'm watching the show as a big lover of the game. So, especially in the 2nd season, they've changed some stuff and twisted some stuff around. A lot of it I'm a fan of. There's a few nitpicks I have, but that's the closest I have to knowing how people feel about when people change certain things about books to film. So this movie follows a dad and his teenage daughter as they move to this very, very small town. It's one of those towns that have, the traditions and everybody knows everybody and small town, really small town. And of course, things start to happen and all the teenagers start to be picked off one by Friendo the clown. Which Friendo is supposed to be this icon of this town, and he's on all the merchandise and the stuff. He's essentially the mascot for this town. So this movie, it has a lot of great things to it. It's directed by Eli Craig, which if anybody doesn't know, he did the movie Tucker and Dale vs. Evil, which is a awesome horror comedy. That movie's hilarious. If you've never seen it, I highly recommend checking that movie out. So this movie does have that comedy flavor to it. It's not nearly in there as much as something like Tucker and Dale vs. Evil, but it has it to where it knows how to build suspense but sprinkle those comedy elements in there. There's a whole great set piece of when 2 of the girls are trying to find a phone to call the police on, and it's one of the rotary phones, and they don't know. They're like, where the fuck is the numbers? How does this phone work? What is it? And shit. And it's this whole thing of how they don't know how the phone works. And that played for pretty good laughs. But this movie, it starts out as a very typical slasher. It's, girl comes to small town with her dad. She becomes friends with the local teenagers. Things aren't what they seem. The dad is like, you need to come home at reasonable times and stuff. So there's already this strain between the parent, the kid and the parent. And then you have this slasher element that comes into play where it's where this somebody dressed up like Friendo is starting to pick these kids off one by one. But midway through the movie, it almost takes a turn and completely exverts your expectations. Because something happens, not going to give anything away, something happens, it almost it flips it on its head where you're like, huh, okay, now I'm interested to see what that is. But at the same time, it's kind of a downfall, at least it was for me, because as soon as that turn or that twist happened, I kind of figured out what it was from that moment. I was kind of like, okay, so it's going to go this route. But it was cool to have your expectations averted where, you thought it was going to be one way and then it just pulls the rug out from under you and it's like, oh, it's actually this. So I'm very torn because I want to give it props, and I do give it full props for being able to do that. But at the same time, as soon as that certain thing was revealed, I immediately, it was like, oh, so it's going to go this way and it's going to be this and this is going to be the reasoning why. And it kind of pretty much was that to an extent when the reveals happen and, the motivations happen and all that stuff. So I kind of guessed it. But it really, as much as I sound disappointed in it, it really didn't take away from my amusement or my enjoyment of the movie at all. Which a lot of times, stuff like that will. It'll take, you'll be on this thing trying to figure out through this journey with these characters trying to figure stuff out. And then when the reveal happens, if it's pretty disappointing, it will completely take the steam out of your sails, and it will just almost flatline it. That's kind of what happened to me with Hell of a Summer, where they kind of revealed stuff in Hell of a Summer somewhat early-ish, and the reveal was like, so you're just following these characters for the rest of it. But that was a completely different style of movie. I mean, they tried to go with the throwback thing. I have a review for Hell of a Summer if you want to check it out. But I was happy that I was able to still hold on to my enjoyment, even though I was slightly disappointed because once, like I said, once that happened, I was able to kind of put two and two together. But it was still a lot of fun. Still, still a great story, a very intriguing story, and it's one that you gave a crap about the teenagers. You cared about what was gonna happen to them. I mean, this is a story where you don't really get a lot of backstory with these characters, mainly except for Quinn and her dad, Quinn is mainly essentially your final girl, and the other teenagers are kind of just there. But you do get a little bit of story with Cole, which is the other kid in the town who his dad is essentially the mayor, who's played by Kevin Durant, who I love. You get a little bit of story with him, but that's really the two that they kind of focus on. There's some stuff revealed with certain other characters here and there, but it's very quick and light, and they don't really spend too much time on it. But it's still enough to where you're hooked in, and you want to stay on this ride for these characters, and you're not totally just checked out where you're like, I don't give a crap what happens to these characters. You're at least they gave you just enough to be in it with these characters. I don't know in the book if it fleshes stuff out even more. I don't know in the next chapters of the books if you follow the same characters or not, or if you follow certain characters and they give you more story behind them. It's hard to say when you have just like maybe a chapter 1 of a story. So maybe as time goes on, if this movie does well, we'll get more of those other stories and more of those, more character development, and we'll find out more about them. Which, me personally, I would really like to see this story, blossom into a franchise and see what the other, where the story takes us, and see how much it follows the books and all that good stuff. Now, I think the look of Friendo is really, really cool. It's a really creepy looking clown, and I feel like stuff with clowns at this point are very, I don't want to say, overrated or anything like that, but we've got quite a few over the past couple years with, with indie movies, B movies, and stuff like that. And of course, with Art the Clown taking the world by storm. So it's like, what can you bring that's different to, the clown world, if you will? And I think this movie does a really good job of making the clown look super creepy. I think his costume is really cool. And personally, I think the kills are very well done in this movie. I think that they are that carnage candy you want. They're violent, they're over the top, but don't go into this expecting like Terrifier kills. If that's what you think this is going to be because it's like a killer clown movie, it's not even close to that. This movie to me really felt like I've said this for a couple other movies, but it felt like an adult Goosebumps book, especially with like the vibe of the small town and stuff like that. It really gave me that type of vibes, and I think this is a movie that would really be a good gateway horror movie for somebody that's trying to get into horror. Even though it's a rated R movie, it balances that tone of comedy and the scares and stuff so well, and the tension. It really does a great job of balancing that out to where it wouldn't be too much for somebody that's trying to dip their toe into the horror world to get into it. And like I said, if anybody grew up reading Goosebumps or seen the show Goosebumps or Are You Afraid of the Dark or anything like that, I think this movie has that vibe to it, and that's something that really just made me love it even more. I also really love the atmosphere of this movie. It feels like it's fall, and it has that Halloweenish type vibe to it, and I love the small town vibe to it as well. I love horror movies that have this small town vibe to it. There's just something that's more eerie and creepy about it, and I don't know, something about a small town movie like that gives me those comfort vibes. I think it's maybe because I grew up in a super small town, but I don't know. I can't explain it. It's just one of those things to me where the small town setting really works for me, and the atmosphere is very, very good. Like I said, it's got that Halloween fall vibes, and it goes perfectly with the setting of a small town. But to me, all that mixed in together added like the perfect, like the cherry on top flavor for this combination of this slasher that they were trying to go for. It also has this 80s throwback style to it, which 80s slashers are my bread and butter. I love those so much, and I have so much fun with them. And it takes a lot of that campiness from those and brings it to this movie as well, which is another reason why I think it would be a good gateway movie. Again, so all that meshed together and blended together, I thought it was just a lot of fun. I also think this is a good horror movie for people that, if you want to bring a friend to or go on a date and one of you is not really into horror, you can be like, nah, this one is, like this for this reason. And I think it's something that they would really enjoy, and both of you would have a lot of fun with. It's also one of those movies that you could put on at like a party, and you and all your friends could really just sit back and enjoy it and have a good time with it and a fun ride with it. One of the other things I really liked was I think this movie did a really good job of bookending this movie while also leaving it open for a sequel. So it balances that line very well with, you're satisfied with what goes on. There's still a few threads that's not tied up all the way, and they do that, obviously purposely because there's 2 more books. I don't know if he might be writing another book. I don't know if he might have wrapped it up in 3. I'm not 100% sure, but it does a really good job of where it leaves these loose threads, but you're also satisfied with how it ends. So if something happens to where they don't get to make, book 2 or 3 into a movie, you're satisfied with how this ends. There's obviously one big thread that they leave hanging, but like I said, it's not enough to where if you think too much about it, it won't really bother you. I know a lot of people, things have to be tied up perfectly with everything, but to me, this was a good way to end it and leave loose threads because I'm satisfied with it. Like I said, if we didn't get another movie, that's fine. I totally get it, and I'm happy with the one movie that we got. But I would be happy to see where the story goes because I do want to see more of these characters. I really like the final girl. I think Katie Douglas does a fantastic job as Quinn, so I'd like to see more of her. I would like to see more of the remaining characters of this town. I'd like to see more of her dad. I would just really like to see where this story goes and how they eventually wrap all this stuff up because I know that there is more of that story in there to tell. So I hope we get more. I hope this movie does well at the box office. I at least hope it does well enough to where we can greenlight the other 2 sequels and get them made because I would really like to see where the story goes with these characters. But overall, this was just a really fun throwback kind of movie. And again, it would be a fun date night movie and a fun gateway movie. So if you guys are looking for something to do this weekend, go check out Clown in a Cornfield. Go check out Final Destination. 2 really good, solid horror movies that are fun are out in the theaters this weekend. So I really just had one big nitpick with this movie, and that was kind of when the twist happens, and it's a mixed thing because it's a mixed nitpick. That's a mouthful, but it's one of those things where yes, I'm happy that they did a twist, but at the same time, as soon as the twist happened, I knew where it was going. So it's one of those double-edged sword things. But I still enjoyed the movie. I thought it was a lot of fun. I'm a sucker for movies like this. I am the target audience for movies like this. So that's my review for Clown in a Cornfield. If you guys are looking for something to do this coming weekend, or please go check out this movie or Final Destination because both of them, like I said, are just really fun movies to check out and really fun movies just to see and have a good time with. If this is the review that you're finding me on, please check out all my other content. I have a plethora of other 2025 reviews. I'll leave a card for that right here, so come on over and check that out. If you've seen Clown in a Cornfield, please comment below and let me know what you think about it. I'd also love to know if you guys have read the books, if you're satisfied from the book to the movie, and what you guys think about going forward, if you'd like to see the other movies and all that fun stuff. As always, please like, comment, subscribe, and as always, I will see all of you in the next one. Thank you so much.